The station of the stars. RTI.
It certainly is the station of the stars. The one and only. Now, what am I doing? I'm so out of touch because, as you know, I was a bit sort of poorly last week and couldn't be here. And I'm very sorry about that. It's not like me to do that, but I couldn't even get out of bed. It was horrible, this virus. And I'm just sort of catching up with all the stuff around me, getting me things in the right places, turning my headphones up a bit so I can hear myself, because I'm still deaf, you see. It's the virus. But we're here, and we are rocking and rolling. And it's me. We've still got some snow on the mountains. Yeah, we have. Really, it's lovely. But before that, we'll talk to Lee. Hello, Lee.
How do you do?
Oh, am I supposed to answer?
Yeah, it's just being polite. I just said, how do you do? And you just ignored me. It's like what you just said to Rachel. I heard what you said, but I just ignored you.
Oh. It's because you're a foreigner.
I am not a foreigner.
You are, because you say, how'd you do?
How'd you do? That's Welsh. It comes from Wales land.
Was it?
It was a little man. He was a double glazing salesman, a Welsh double glazing salesman, and he was actually called, I forgot his name now. Anyway, he was called that. And he introduced, first time I met him, he came up to me, big grin on his face, and said, how'd you do? And I said, how'd you do? And I've said, how'd you do ever since? And it was the man who had two first names, and I've forgotten them. That's terrible, isn't it?
Sounds like an old radio DJ. They did that.
Did what? Have two first names?
Yeah, because it's supposed to be snappier.
Like Peter Anthony?
Yes. No, don't have a go at PA, you so-and-so. Anyway, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. Hello, Rach.
Hello, Uncle Eric.
How are you?
We've already descended into madness. It's wonderful to be back.
He's because of him.
I know.
Right, so have you got your picnic basket ready? You got the vino ready? Everything ready for Sunday?
Well, yes and no.
Something on Sunday.
It's packed, but unfortunately, I have been called to arms, and that is I have to go to work.
Oh dear!
But it's all good. They pay me. It's fine.
What's happening on Sunday that I've not been told about?
You heathen!
Some stupid.
Hey?
Stupid motorsport as usual, Uncle Lee. Stuff we don't care about. But apparently lots of people in Melbourne do because it's the Australian Grand Prix.
It's the start of the Grand Prix season!
Oh, no, yeah, just a load of noise and Aussie noise as well.
Right, here we go. Let's just take some quick hellos. Bob Hockin, before he disappears off the top of the screen. Miranda's there, as is Alistair. Steve, Eva is there, do brilliant Eva. Christine, Griff Melstar, that's a new name. Hello, Griff. Steve says, it's because he's from Timper. Oh, Steve, what are you on about? He just said good morning anyway.
Miranda meant simply because he means I've got a round head.
That's true. Miranda says hi.
Hi.
Naughty girl at this time.
Oh, Uncle
Lee.
It's not fun somewhere, like right here, for example.
But he's not too wrong there.
Oh?
No, because she does live in Holland.
Oh, yeah.
What's the terrible thing to say about Holland? You've insulted me, Rachel, and now you've insulted Holland.
Have I? I don't think so. I don't think so. Holland is good. No, Miranda's putting thumbs up, so that's okay. Robert's in the house, as is Heather. And Alsbetta is there. Hi. Alsbetta is in Cambridge. And actually that leads us, well, we'll lead us into a story about Stephen Hawkins in a moment. And Clive is there. Terry's there. El Tel from Spain, he's there. The race isn't until next Sunday. I know, Steve.
Doesn't matter. It's interrupting my traffic flow right now. Thank you, Steve Mann, for your piping in.
Hello, Steve.
You lot can pipe in any time you like, guys. Simon Lee's there, as is Voby's back, as always. Bless. He's always there. Thanks, mate. Always there on you now. Edward is there, as is Ollie. Hello, Ollie. Anab. I wish I knew who you were, Anab, because you're always there, as is Tommy. Tommy's always here on a Friday, bless. Hayley's here as well. And Danny, and we'll say a few more hellos as we go through. Good afternoon to Simon Lee, the lovely Jenny Hodge. The wonderful Jenny Hodge.
We like her, Rach.
Yeah, she's a very nice lady. She's a very clever lady, actually.
Oh, Dorothy says Dorothy's here.
Oh, Dorothy's there. Oh, no, Jenny Hodge, she's really good with photography and stuff like that as well. A very clever lady. John Clark is there. Watching the Formula E race. Oh, that's a good idea, Steve. Steve's a legend.
We know that, but why this time?
He says, and I quote, Rachel, get into the mood by watching the Formula E race tomorrow.
Oh, Steve, you foolish man. Have you not
What do
been
you mean?
listening for like 5 years?
Do you not know what Formula E is now?
Well, I thought it was like Preparation H.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
How good it is, you might as well stick it up you.
It's electric Formula One.
There's nothing electric about Formula One. I have been that man and sat through hours and hours and hours of cars going, meow, meow. That's all you hear. And you eat crappy sandwiches sold by idiots behind stupid stands. And that's it. That's all I'll say, really.
Do you know what the really best bit that you could ever do with Formula One?
Burn it.
No,
Blow it up.
no.
Yes.
It was back in the day when Jos Verstappen was racing. That's Max Verstappen's dad. And the company who were the sponsors, which are an electronics company called Trust, they had made some two-seater Formula One cars.
Aye.
So the driver was in the front like normal, and selected journalists could sit in the back and go round the track with the F1 driver, because they wouldn't let us drive them. Boring. But I tell you what, you go round the track with Jos Verstappen, wow!
You know what this story has done? This story has reminded me that I don't have to get my sleeping pill prescription filled this week.
No, you don't. I tell you what, I'm really glad I asked you this question, Rach. Why we got all this stuff packed? Oh dear.
Hi to Alex and to William and to that's a Mikhail, actually. Oh yes, absolutely. That's a Mikhail. I think from over this part of the pond, because it's a Mikhail, not a Michael. So hi Mikhail. Du bien Mikhail. À quoi ça marche? I'm waiting for an answer. I ain't getting one. What?
I thought you were referring to the picnic that I'd actually been invited to on Sunday.
How would I?
What's it to do with Formula One?
How the flipping heck would I know about a picnic?
I thought, how did you know I'd been invited to a picnic?
For goodness sake.
It's very late.
Well, this is true.
So he's stolen your picnic to promote his own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but Lee, if you can imagine... Well, Steve says, so envious you did that. You can be envious as much as you like, Steve. It was phenomenal. And the pressure on your neck. Oh, what? But when you've got that...
What were you doing?
About it, Uncle Lee.
It's the
That's what I'm asking it.
It's the G-force on your neck when you go around a corner in a Formula One car.
G-force.
Oh, dear. I forgot I'm talking to a Luddite. Oh, dear. Hang on. Engage Brain Eric for Postcard from Poprad time.
Are we doing a show or not?
I think so. Anyway, as I mentioned, Elizabeth in English, who's a good friend of the show, and a little while ago she was in Poprad, a little bit nervous, and she said, "Eric, I'm going to Cambridge." I said, "Really? That's cool." She said, "I'm a little bit nervous." I said, "Why is that?" She said, "I don't know anybody there." I said, "Well, I do." So she said, "Really?" So I put her in touch with this lovely man called David Clouter, who is a great radio presenter, who very courteously arranged for me to pick her up, talk to her, help her out, and help to get integrated into the University at Cambridge, which was really kind of him.
That's very nice.
Not only that,
about going to. I thought she was nervous about being in Poprad. I thought, why?
No, well, with me, yeah, okay, I get that. But then, just after Christmas, at one of the last seminars he ever held, she went to see Stephen Hawkins. She's one of the invited guests. How lucky
Stephen
is she?
Hawking. Pay respect to his name, Uncle Eric. It's Hawking.
Hawking,
Yes.
yeah. What did I say then?
Hawkins.
Oh, sorry, I do beg your pardon. We've got to say hello to people across the pond. That's Nancy, who's in La La Land.
Hello,
Oh,
Nancy.
La La Land is La La Land.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
Yes.
David's there, Chris, and Noreen's joined us. Welcome back, Noreen. We'd love to have you with us every week. But sadly, this guy... I know, Rach. I'm not going to go there. I'm not a fan of academics. I'm not.
Oh,
Yes.
I don't
But-
That's late breaking news. Shocker.
Yeah, right. But Stephen Hawkins was just a
Hawking.
genius. Not a genius.
Hawking.
Not a genius.
that?
Oh, sorry, Hawking. Hawking.
He's got a virus, don't you know?
Yes, exactly. It's gone to my brain. He wasn't one of these lovey academics. He just was able to communicate the beauties of physics to everybody and actually make them enjoy it.
That's correct. His book. Got it late.
Yeah.
So late. His book that he released in '88, and it was so remarkable. He thought that it was going to be sold in airports. He said that would be really great, and it ended up 147 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, and then a record-breaking 237 weeks on the Times bestseller list, the Times of London, and that's just ridiculous. It was translated into dozens of languages, and that's just extraordinary for a book that was aimed at fellow physicists and academics. That's just extraordinary.
But the way he wrote it was not at all precocious like a lot of academic books.
Pretentious.
Pretentious, sorry.
And his name's Hawking.
I've got a virus. That's my excuse forever.
He told it as he understood it, and the thing that was the most tragic and understandable was that he never got a Nobel Prize. But he never got a Nobel Prize because none of his theories had been proven. That you have to be proven. It has to be proven. They need evidence before they'll give you a Nobel Prize for physics. And he was a theorist. Experimental physicists had yet to prove his theory, so that never occurred. It's not based on a body of work.
No.
But he turned down an don't you know?
Well, yes,
Interesting.
He did, because that was one of his political stances as well. But the one thing with him is that whilst he's passed on from here, the amount of content of him lecturing on places like YouTube will inspire many more generations to come. And that is the best tribute that you can say to the guy. And Steve's just written, he wrote it so well that even I could understand it. Good on you, Steve.
Yeah.
I like that. Must say a couple of more quick hellos to Mike, to Jan Tribula. Hello, Jan. To Peter Roy Verley. That's very smart. To David. And to Aaron. Hello, Aaron.
Aaron?
And it looks like
Aaron.
It's a lady Aaron.
Oh, right. How interesting.
Because there are both. That's one of the...
Interest.
Go on.
As a matter of interest, on Stephen Hawking, how good are his theories in reality? Or are they not in reality at all?
They're
I
not
don't
in
think they are they?
They've come
No.
close to proving the black hole radiation or the Hawking radiation.
Yeah.
They've come quite
Right.
close to that, but it's like they're just about there. They just need to.
That's the thing.
Actually,
isn't
I have got an answer for you, Lee, if you cast your mind back. And I'm going to, well, obviously none of us were alive then, but if we were to go to some of Stephen's time travelling, in 1948, a gentleman wrote a theoretical paper and the gentleman was called Arthur C. Clarke.
Yes.
Now, back in 1948, he worked out as a physicist that having 3 satellites in a special place around the world would enable the world to communicate with each other. And he was absolutely right. It's why it's called the Clark's Belt. And I think it's going to take, from the beginning of Stephen Hawking and his ideas, it will often take 20 plus years for the scientific world to catch up with him and prove his theories. And I can see that happening.
It took an extraordinarily long time for them to prove Higgs boson.
Yeah.
That was a very long time, and this is no different. And as technology advances, they'll get closer to proving his theory, which I think can be proven, but almost isn't proven. So
no,
we have to see.
Yeah, but I think
Arthur C. Clarke was a writer. He wasn't a scientist, was he? He was a science writer. He was an undersea explorer and all sorts.
I know he was, and he ended up living in Sri Lanka.
But he see what fascinates, and this is no disrespect to Stephen Hawking at all, because despite this incredible amount of disability he suffered from, he actually created these bodies of work, like you say, and actually made people think about things. But also, he had an incredibly charismatic life with a lot of drama, a lot of trauma in it, and all sorts of strange things went on. He was a fabulous, rounded man.
And with a wicked sense of humour as well.
Yeah, well, yes, that's right. Yeah.
But I think he was one of those people. And if you think about it, I actually got terribly chastised in, let me think when it was. The first one was in the 1970s. I was working for a company then, and it was just at the point where electronic cash registers were starting to come on the market. And
Yes.
I had my little Sinclair Spectrum. And I'd done a program on it, and I'd worked out if you push the button on the till, you could talk to the computer, and the computer would do your stock ordering for you. That was my theory.
Yeah.
Do you know what I got told?
That's ridiculous.
Basically.
Yeah. I was told officially in writing.
Really?
To stop talking rubbish and get on with my work.
Not long ago, there was a whole bunch of people that swore, and some still do, that the Earth was flat.
Yes, this is true. And in the early 90s, and it's quite comical now, I said that we'd be driving around listening to radio stations in stereo from around the world, and it'll all be digital. And a certain magazine editor wrote words to the effect of, I was a complete idiot.
So are you the new Stephen Hawking or
Not
the new
a
Arthur
chance.
C. Clarke?
Neither. But I don't know what it is that there's things that you can see, and if one of the purist broadcasters was to look at this studio that we're using now, they would go, that can't work. But it does.
It does actually, yes.
It does work very well.
He's a psychic, Uncle Lee. I think he might be a psychic.
Do you think he wired it himself, that studio?
Yeah, I'm sure he did, and there's about a 5-hour story about how it occurred.
We've only got 3/4 of an hour left, though.
No, Lee, we haven't even got 3/4 of an hour. We've got 40 minutes.
That's Formula One. For you.
I'm telling us that.
But I do think that what Stephen did was actually not necessarily always create the idea. He questioned things and said, look, if we put that thing with that thing, A plus B should equal C.
But isn't that, well, that's what science should be about, isn't it, really? Or
It is.
theoretical science has a different... Yeah, I understand, yeah.
Anyway, we'll be coming on to another science story later, which I knew would happen, but there you go. Anyway, how tickled I am!
Oh, that's a terrible thing to say. He's dead. You can't be tickled by the fact that Ken Dodd's dead.
I can, because he made me laugh half of my life.
If you read the Consumer Watch Foundation, you can see where I made him cry.
19 minutes.
19 minutes. I know that's because you wouldn't shut up. I kept trying to get it in.
Well, and the plug.
And the plug. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with getting
That was
your plug.
that was a
That's Formula One. same time, you time munchers.
No, that was because I was stupid enough to ask.
One of the funniest men, slapstick comedy, a very blue comedian in the right circumstances. Sir Ken Dodd has died, and he just made me laugh. Even when he was doing his ventriloquist dummy, which he wasn't a ventriloquist anyway, but he did it in such a way that you laughed.
He did. He was a very, very funny man. He was. The thing is, round that period, and none of us really caught onto it. But in the '60s, which was the psychedelic era of everything from music to writing to films, you actually had a series or a set of very surreal comedians like Frankie Howerd and people like that, and Ken Dodd fell into that surreal world where he created almost drug-like fantasy characters that just captured the atmosphere of that period and then carried on for decades. Can I tell you my little story about Sir Ken Dodd? Because I think the shows it.
You can, and I'm going to say 2 words to you.
What?
The Goons.
Goons? Oh, they were surreal. Of course they were. So was Tommy Cooper.
Yeah.
They were, incredibly surreal. But one of my first celebrity interviews, going back into the dim annals of whatever, it'd have to be, I have to admit, it'd have to be the 70s, the late 70s. I was probably about 2 years old when I did this interview. No, but I was sent to a village hall where he was doing an afternoon show. And I sat through the show. At that time, his humour didn't mean a great deal to me because I think I was probably about 18. It was one of the first jobs. And I sat through it. Anyway, I'd arranged to meet him afterwards so we could have a chat. I was working on a weekly newspaper. There wasn't much I was going to do. But as he came out, I stood by his Rolls. He always had a chocolate brown Rolls Royce at that time. And I was standing by his Rolls Royce waiting for him outside. And he came out really happy, a big smile on his face, laughing, just joking away as he walked towards me, just saying all sorts of bizarre things. And as he walked towards me, I lit a cigarette. And it stopped him in his tracks. He just stopped and he looked completely crestfallen when he asked me, dead simply, why are you smoking? And I said at the start, I said, well, basically, because I like it. And I actually witnessed a tear come into his eye as he told me quite seriously that his girlfriend, I've got a name, if you read the Consumer Watch Foundation, she's named in there and everything, I can't remember, had died, not of a smoking-related disease, but of a brain tumour. And he wanted me to tell him that I would stop smoking there and then because, and this was the thing, he cared. He really actually cared about people. And that's one of the reasons he became one of the biggest comedians, one of the most famous comedians in British and almost around the world, really.
Actually, I can see Ken Dodd doing this joke. I can, mate. The saddest thing about Doddy dying is that he didn't live long enough to see the end of the DFS sale. Terribly English, that is. And I think I have to... now, I can't say strap Rachel down because that would come out wrong. We need to calm her down.
Yes.
Make her tranquil. Say nice things to her, Lee.
Rachel, I think you're gorgeous. You know that anyway. You know I've always been in love with you. You are the most sensual, most beautiful, most elegantly fabulous woman in the world.
Because
that's supposed to calm me down.
Because Rachel is about to slap somebody if we're not careful.
Oh.
Steve Mann is in deep trouble.
Oh dear.
He is in such deep trouble, he's paddling his way deeper. He says, can you guys help me out with this problem? My mum has got her first modem-type TV set up yesterday.
Yeah.
She can find the on button, but she can't find the off button. She can't understand that a button can do two jobs.
Well, that's because... yeah, right, yeah.
Oh, I think you're dead, Steve.
Steve, wake up to yourself.
Afternoon to Stuart. I love a bit of bully.
Ah, no, poor old Jim Bowen, I met him and all. He was another really nice, genuine bloke.
Yeah, he was a nice bloke, actually, Jim Bay. For those of you who don't know, there was a program based around darts, and Jim had a couple of catchphrases. Was "You can't beat a bit of bully," i.e., putting the dart in the bullseye, and his other catchphrase, which was really rotten. It was a terrible catchphrase. These people would go to the end of the competition, and then if they got so many points in with 6 darts, they would win the star prize, which is typically, a cheap car or a power boat or something like that.
Power boat. You lived in Rochdale.
Yeah. At which point he would say, "Let's see what you would have won." And these people are going, "I've just lost me money, and who wants to show me what I'm going to do in a bit?" And I just thought it was brilliant the way he got away with it. But there you go, Jim Bain, legend.
Quick Ken Dodd joke.
Go on.
This is a eulogy to Ken Dodd. Did you know that a laugh is something that comes out of a hole in your face? If it comes out of anywhere else, you're in dead trouble.
That is very befitting. We have to be serious for a minute because there's all sorts of problems in Miami. A brand new bridge, which has only been really open 7 days, collapsed in Florida, trapping pedestrians and causing mass casualties. The idea of the bridge was to enable students from Florida International University to cross a 6-lane highway to get to their halls of residence. And seriously, this thing had only been open for 7 days.
Well, actually, it hadn't actually been opened. It was people who were under the bridge who really predominantly were caught in the accident.
No, I know, but the bridge had its official opening last Saturday.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It's the fact because they were still working on it, and that's what apparently caused the collapse because they were tightening the stanchions. The whatever they call it, not ropes, are they? But the stanchions that hold it in place.
Yeah.
And one of those snapped. Now the thing is, this isn't the first collapse of that type of bridge.
No, it isn't.
Within the tightening thing, a bit scary, isn't it?
Well, the thing is, it does make one wonder why, when they were doing this tightening exercise, that they didn't shut the road.
That's a very, very, very good point.
Oh, heck.
Very difficult to shut a 6.
That's the sort of thing that we should be asking. Why didn't they shut the road?
Well, they should have. What they should do is behead the engineer.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be the engineer, because the bridge came in as like a kit bridge. It wasn't the company that installed it were not the manufacturing company.
It went up very, very quickly as well, didn't it? It went up within minutes almost.
That's ridiculous.
I know.
And then not to shut the bridge, shut the road, like Eric says. When you know that this type of bridge under that operation has collapsed before, that's very, very... And nobody's mentioned that. Nobody's mentioned that up to now, but somebody should be looking into that and asking the correct...
We used to do it all the time. So I don't get. I mean,
what, you used to build bridges as well now?
No, we used to shut the road.
In America, it is very difficult to get permits to shut a 6-lane highway.
Unless you're making a film.
It is, because they pay for it. They pay a lot.
Mm-hmm. But I just...
Well, that makes it even worse, Rachel, doesn't it? That makes it worse.
Yes.
If it's due to finance that this has happened, some very, very powerful questions have got to be asked.
Well,
Like
yeah. I mean, seriously,
Florida.
we were trained at Bletchley Park in how to shut a road.
Aye, really?
Really?
Why?
Because when you used to put the telephone cables across the road from the telegraph pole to somebody's house, you could... Now, there were ways you could do it, where you could whip the cable up quickly and nobody'd know. But technically, you were supposed to... We were given red flags. You were supposed to shut the road, let the cable roll across the road, get the bloke to stick it up the other end, oik it up properly, and only when he'd made it secure at both ends did you reopen the road. And telecom engineers had the right to do that.
So you didn't have to have permission to close the road? You didn't have to go to the police or the county council or whoever, the highways department?
No, because
Really, you could just shut a road like that out of the blue.
because we were civil servants, and in the old days, what is now called British Telecom had a thing called flying rights.
Yeah.
And that meant that you were allowed. Well, first of all, you were allowed to fly cables across the road without permission.
Oh, yeah.
And secondly, you were supposed to be a sensible person and avoid people having car accidents by closing the road. And you would let the other guy would come across the road with his big coil of cable, take it to the top of the house, hook it up like they always do with what they call drop wires, and he would twist the steel bits around it. And when he said, "It's done," then you would courteously wave the cars on and go thank you as they went past and all that sort of thing. And we did not need a police permit or a transport permit, nothing. We just did it.
So you were actually one of those blokes with like a big lollipop in your hand with stop and go on it?
No, we had red flags.
Red flags, did you? That's because you thought you were at sea.
Yeah,
I don't want to brag or anything, but in my heyday, I was known to stop traffic.
That's because you're gorgeously gorgeous, Rachel.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes. It's your
What about now?
gorgeously gorgeousness.
I could stop it now with one of my multiple backsides, but
Oh, Rach, don't be like that.
No,
stop it.
rude.
That's really rude, really rude. But Steve's actually raised a good point. They were probably scared of irate motorists complaining about some disruption, which is typical when, motorists complain about somebody else keeping them safe. I never get that.
I think you got a good point there.
I don't think motorists would have objected too much. I think this is purely
I
about.
think they'd rather still be alive.
It's about money.
Absolutely. We've got to move on because we've got so much to go through and we haven't even scraped the surface yet. We're into the Russian spy thing, and I am, again, going to try and help here with some serious comment about the situation. As we know, there was a terrible attack in Salisbury. The signature of the drug was traced back to Russia.
Russia denies it. Russia denies that they.
No, that's true. Yeah, I know. I know. Let me finish. The actual signature of the nerve agent was one that's registered to Russia. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So after all these things go on, we get into the tit for tat thing. And Mrs. Mayer said, right, 23 of these so-called diplomats, which aren't diplomats really. Okay. Actually, I'll just before I get on to that, Alan's just commented. Also, Eric. GPO, BT, and Cable and Wireless Mercury, and all the other telecom suppliers in the UK have compulsory purchase powers to enable you to do stuff. Which is true, Alan. You're right. Absolutely right. They can do what they like. Anyway, back to the plot, because it all ties in together with telecoms. So then, social media this week has gone into meltdown. Absolute meltdown. Now, it doesn't matter what your stance is. You cannot say to the British government, because of a thing called a D notice, as in ABCD notice.
Yeah.
The D notice covers things like not telling people outside of the big research areas what's going on when you talk about nerve gases and nerve agents. Portland Down cannot tell the public what they do in there. They're not allowed to under the Official Secrets Act. And at certain times, government actually puts a D notice on any communications about certain things going out. Therefore, Mrs. May, you idiots, cannot tell you about it because she's breaking the rules of the way the UK works by doing so. Now,
Can't tell you about what, though?
hold on. Added to that, this is not a Conservative thing. It's very much a Labour Party thing as well. They have used the D-notice scenario as of the I'm not sure about the Lib Dems. They may well have done when they were in coalition. But certainly the Tories have as well. To actually stop information going out which can harm the country.
Yeah.
And that's what a D notice is. I mean, if Lee, as a journalist, had a D notice slapped on him, there's absolutely nothing he can do about it.
Well, there is actually, but it's not a very successful thing you can do. But you can write round things. But why are we on about D notices on this?
Because the social media people are saying Mrs. May should tell us everything.
Oh, I see. Right, yeah. Well,
no, she can't.
No.
Like, wake up, smell the coffee.
And the other point is, very simple point, is nobody really knows anything. All we know, and the reason, and I don't think people have caught on to this so as much as they should have done, we have actually had an attack on British soil of chemical weapons.
Twice.
Yeah. And
twice in 1 week.
Yes, that's right. It's horrendous. Even the IRA, even ISIS have not attacked this country with chemical weapons. And yet whoever did this has. And really, we need to stand up. And if it is the Russians, which it almost certainly is, then we need to stand up against Russia. And a lot of countries are coming and backing us. We cannot have chemical attacks, terror attacks on our land.
With respect, Steve says we need more information before we blame Russia. Steve, you cannot have the information.
No, you can't. And also for your own safety and for your own security, you can blame Russia because Russia's are the obvious people. If you look at who the victims are, if you look at all the people who have been involved in it, if you look at the connections all the way around, everything points at Russia. And only a dictatorial society like Russia would stop anybody saying this is likely to be the Russians.
It's hardly likely to be the Americans, is it?
Yeah, hardly.
No, absolutely not. Sorry.
No, you see what I mean? It's illogical. Now, the one suggestion from Mr. Corbyn is he's also suggested the Russian mafia could be behind it. Now, if that's the case, and I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but if that's the case, it's still Vladimir Putin's Russia that has allowed the Russian mafia to get the drug in the first place. So they're still at fault.
Why is Corbyn trying to deflect the finger pointing away from Putin and his regime? Why is he started now to point at something? Quite right, you could say it's a Russian mafia, you could say it was somebody else, you could say it was a Father Christmas impersonator. Mm-hmm. The facts are, very simply, it points towards the government, based on the fact of what the bloke did, what his daughter did. At first, everybody thought she was collateral damage. It now is feasible that she was the actual victim in the first place.
Correct.
Because of her connections in Russia. This is an incredible story.
And where it gets very, very silly is when you get somebody like Sergei Lavrov, who's the the foreign ministry in Moscow. Yeah. He says the defence secretary in the UK is lacking education. Hello? No. Mr. Lavrov, what he's lacking is the ability for you to bombard his brain with stuff that's untrue.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
I think that's a very good point, yeah.
You know, you cannot, and he was almost saying on this whole speech that every British person has no brains. Hello?
Hey, Mr. Russian Foreign Minister guy, go sell your crazy somewhere else. We're not buying it.
Exactly. But apparently they're now going to stop paying attention. Yes, of course they are, because it will mess up their pretend election that's going on at the moment, which is a pretend election, where Mr. Putin will be voted back in as whatever he is now.
As always.
Because there's nobody else to stand against him. Now, why is that, I wonder?
Yeah, I don't know, Uncle Eric. I'm sure there's no one in Russia who wants to stand against... I don't know.
But I'll tell you what I think, and I genuinely believe this. I think he's worried that if this thing gets big press in Russia, it will mean that even more people will not vote either way in the election. Now, if Mr. Putin only manages to get, say, 20% of the electorate out to vote for him, that's going to put him in a very difficult position.
I think you're right. Do you also think that Jeremy Corbyn has made yet another major mistake in how he's handling something? Because surely, if instead of saying, "Oh, I think it's the Russian mafia," hey, like that, instead of saying it could well be shouldn't he be saying, "Hang on, what happened in Iraq? We went to war on Iraq. His God, his previous leader, took us to war in Iraq because of false information." Now, instead of being cautious and saying ridiculous things like he is, why isn't he saying we need to be cautious because of what happened in Iraq? We could actually create a major incident with Russia based on the fact that we don't actually have the full facts. Or, going back to what you said, does Mrs. May have the full facts and isn't sharing them like Steve Mann says?
Correct. I don't think she's never going to share them. And honestly, because things have changed a little bit. When I first came to Slovakia, when I first went to the Baltic states, that's right, the Baltic states, I had to get permission from the Home Office to go because I had one of those 25-year-long Official Secrets Act things, and I had to get permission. Now, currently, I know Mr. Putin's still pained over the fact that they lost the Baltic states, but let me share. I know what I'm going to say. It's kind of illegal. That's all right. My God. Anyway, back in the day, the Russians didn't allow Latvians to have their own radio stations in their own language, and there were pirate ones. And to cut a long story short, I used to buy radios from the Metropolitan Police, old ones, convert them to 100.5 FM, and send them to Sweden. Sweden would somehow or other then get them smuggled into Latvia, and Latvia would keep this radio station called Super FM on the air. The Russians would raid it, da-di-da-di-da, this ping-pong was going on forever. I was then invited out there to... by the owner of Super FM, who became the communications minister, to try and reinstate a lot of the transmitter sites that the Russians had smashed up with hammers, and they'd literally just smashed stuff. It was pointless, and I got to meet people there. And one you're sitting in a hotel. Come on, there's a girl sitting there. You talk to them. It's normal. We're blokes, and I said, "What's the matter?" And she said, "Well." She was having to be a lady of the night because she couldn't get a job. Right. And the reason she couldn't get a job is she was raped by some Russian soldiers, had a child, she wouldn't have a termination, and I really respect her for that. And the fact is that the way they treated people in the Baltic states was horrific. Now, anybody that can kind of live with that, I don't get it. I really don't get it. And you saw people there who had no pension, they had nobody looking after them. The whole thing was just terrible. And yet, Mr. Corbyn seems, for some reason or other, able to depict Russia as something good.
Well, that is the problem with Corbyn, isn't it? Corbyn hit the British public at exactly the right time with his left-wing trendy politics, his peacenik attitudes and everything. He hit at the right point, but has been proven again and again and again to actually be somebody without any kind of policy.
Mm-hmm. Well, Marcus says Russia is a danger to all Eastern European countries, including Slovakia. I kind of get that, Marcus, but by the same token, as in any former USSR country, there are one or two that still think, oh, the old days were better. But the vast majority, especially the younger people, go, not playing. Alan says, and this is quite a good point, Alan, that you raise. The Russian bloke and his family should have kept their heads down when they were exchanged into the UK. But no, he kept hanging around the Russian embassy, courting intelligence people, too high profile. You're absolutely right, Alan. I agree.
Yeah, but surely, really, that's indicative of what he was actually doing while he was here.
Oh, yes.
Well, when he got into retirement, he lived openly. But most Russians do live openly and comfortably in Britain.
Yeah,
and
they do. And there are a lot of regular Russian people, as there are a lot of regular Australian people that live in London.
Absolutely.
Lots of irregular Australian people, but that's another show.
Steve wants to know, when you sign the OSA, which is the Official Secrets Act, does it last for life? No, Steve, it doesn't. It varies in the term it lasts, depending on what you did or didn't do when you first signed the Official Secrets Act.
You can actually sign the Official Secrets Act on one thing, and it could last a day.
Yes, absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Got a comment off Dorothy on Russia. I don't know what the point is here. Russia claimed that under circumstances such as this, they're entitled to a 10-day period before sending an answer. And Dorothy's asking why were they given a deadline of only a few hours then?
Well, why do they need 10 days?
Well, if that's what they're entitled to look into things, because it's like any accusation. They are being accused of doing something horrendous, and to say, right, plead guilty or not, it's a bit of a kangaroo court, isn't it?
It is kind of, Lee, but I think these things were set up post-Cold War, the original Cold War, when everybody was trying to flaff it around and be fluffy and nice and, accommodating, in the vain hope that they would never have to use these things again.
Yeah. I think that falls under the broad umbrella of national security too.
Yep.
They would do lots of things in the name of national security, and when people are sort of moved from one place to another, a lot of the time it's for everyone's safety. Theirs also.
Absolutely. Damn right. We're going to move on because I'm sure this topic will carry on through next week as well. Apparently a new report from British MP says there's no evidence to support the claim Britain could have a post-Brexit open Irish border without any checkpoints. How stupid are they?
Why?
Yeah.
They are just so stupid.
Yeah.
Go on, mate.
It's too easy for words. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. You have lorry in one part of Europe.
Yeah.
And like we used to have those little yellow tag things they used to put on there for going through customs without being opened, which was about as useful as a chocolate fire card. You can now track lorries with number plates and electronic tagging and the like. And
Sorry, is that a big truck?
Yes.
Okay.
Not like the big trucks you have in the outback, but that's little compared to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right.
Yes.
And so,
Like a semi?
Like a semi, yes.
Right.
Yes.
What's like a semi?
Lee, behave yourself.
Hello, Lee.
I think she said it.
Yeah, but it's different
that.
terminology. Anyway, so what you can quite easily do is you can actually, if you like, tag the vehicle so that as it goes across a customs border, it will then go, pa-ding, goes into a computer system, end of story, you know it's gone through, it can be the taxes paid, the duties paid, yada, 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 and you have an electronic trace route for that vehicle.
Like a toll, like a toll camera.
You can't have.
Like an electronic toll rate, yes.
Yeah.
You don't need people with a little box to sit in and a border guard going, please show me your papers. No.
Not unless you're in Hogan's Heroes. What century is this?
Exactly. So you are stupid people saying you have to have a fixed border between the north and the south of Ireland because you do not need it. You just electronically do it. And do you know what? That would avoid any sort of misunderstandings with the people there, wouldn't it?
So why are MPs saying that you can't do it, that we can't have a technological solution to this hard?
Because they're stupid.
Yeah, but they are standing up and telling Theresa May that she's got it wrong. It can't be wrong. That has to be possible. If you can do it, like you say, when we went through Europe by taxi last year, we went through lots and lots of toll roads. We didn't have to stop the car and chuck money at them.
No.
It was an electronically operated thing. Of course they can do it.
They do it here. They do it here, Lee.
I walked through one on the border of Switzerland and France. I said, I'm going to go stand in two places at once.
Yeah.
And did that very thing.
It is absolutely ludicrous. It really is ludicrous. We're going to cram through some more of these. Got to say hello to Ellie, who's in New York State, Nick, and to Lee Williams. Happy birthday, Lee Williams. It's his birthday today.
Happy birthday, Lee.
He's 19 again.
Yes, so am I.
Yes, and also to Alexandra as well. Very good to see the stars coming out and supporting the students on the gun protests in America. Good on you. Yeah. Well done. I find this hysterically funny from Russia. Tons of gold has fallen out the back of a plane as it took off. They call this a cargo plane malfunction. Yeah, right.
A gold rush.
A gold rush, yes. Very true. Very true. Congratulations to
Australia. Mr. Put it in.
Yeah, I know what he was doing.
What?
He was getting people to run around and pick the money up so they don't say anything bad about him.
Distraction.
Yeah, distraction tactics.
Correct.
Absolutely. Well done, Rach.
Thanks.
Yeah, well done, Rach.
Yeah, 131 years after being thrown overboard, the world's oldest message in a bottle has been washed up on a beach in Western Australia.
Oh, Rach.
Very cool. They found this bottle, and it's all been verified and authenticated and so forth. And it's brilliant. And it's like 132 years or something. It hadn't been touched by human hands.
And apparently it's going to be confirmed by the Guinness Book of World Records as well.
Yes.
Isn't that nice? Apparently, you're also being very nice to South Africa's white farmers as well, Rach.
Yeah.
Well, there's a very sinister undertone to this. Peter Dutton is our immigration minister, and he's one of the people responsible for the disasters that we've talked about before, about Nauru and Manus Island, Papua New Guinea, and refugees and asylum seekers and so forth. And he's notorious for being a right-wing, almost racist. almost racist, yeah. He's just a very nasty character, and closing our borders to people from certain nations and certain religious groups and so forth, but saying, poor old South African white farmers. Well, Mr. Dutton, I've got something to say to you. What about poor old Australian white farmers? We've just reached the end of our worst drought in history.
Exactly.
And our farmers suffering horribly, and they get little assistance from the government while they're all going out of business and generational farms are being lost. Why do you want to bring farmers into a situation like that? Leave them alone.
Exactly.
I think Rachel's just said is very powerful, actually, because if you remember, when Live Aid, the shows for Live Aid were on, the live shows, his Royal Bobness got himself in a load of trouble for saying exactly what Rachel said. Why don't we hive off some of this money to our farmers who can't afford to pay their mortgages, etc.? And that created Farm Aid. I want Rach to form a Farm Aid thing in Australia. Because I think, yeah.
Good idea. And are you ready for this? Andrea Ward Eversley.
Oh.
Now, and I can tell you what Andrea does for a living. She's actually a jazz diva, just to show I have some culture. She says, hello, Eric. Andrea here from near Stratford-upon-Avon. I know. Great to see you and listen to you. Hugs and love. You see, I can be associated with cultural people.
Oh, got yogurt in the fridge doesn't mean you got culture, man.
That's such an old joke, Rachel. I've used it on him hundreds of times.
You tried, don't you?
I
Hello to my old buddy Chris Blackman, and hi to Bernard as well. With the whole thing about the plastics in the sea going on, now they found plastic particles in bottled water. Why am I not surprised?
Well, do you know
it's
what? They've actually said it could well be because of when you open the bottle, particles of plastic fall off the lid.
Oh,
Now,
thank you. I love you.
Yeah.
I do.
It's energy physics, man.
Whoops.
They've yet to prove that it's harmful.
Yes, exactly. I'll just knock in the studio about. I was desperate to get this one in because I love it. A big space harpoon. And again, this is something we spoke about years ago on various programs. There is a junkyard up there in space.
Yeah.
And I mean a junkyard. So,
I wouldn't mind going up there with my truck and gathering it.
Well, exactly. The danger here is that if these uncontrolled satellites actually bang into each other, that can cause debris that will go round the Clark's Belt, go hammering through the satellites that a lot of us use, not just for television, but for our internet, for our telephone calls, for our banking.
For all stations.
Yes.
Has anybody seen the movie Gravity? This is exactly what happened. It destroyed a shuttle, crying out loud.
Yep.
And do you know what? It must look like a lunar steptoe and son. It'd be just terrible.
Yeah. Bernard says, hi, Eric. Greetings from an old Shillingtonian. Vic White, hope you're well. I am Bernard, and I do remember you as well. Chris replies, hi, mate. Carrier pigeons would be a better idea, says Chris, rather than the satellites. No, you need the satellites. But this is a really clever idea from Airbus. And they are genuinely going to have this sort of kind of like hook. And they're going to capture these things. And a lot of them will burn up on entry as they come back in. But there's a possibility that they can take this one stage further, which is actually to bring the satellites that have run out of solid fuel, because although they use solar power as well, there'll be solid fuel in there that runs out, and they can recharge them and use them again.
Is this really right, though? I think Rachel made a really good point. Do we now have a solar steptoe and son? Will there actually be astronauts flying around in this thing with a big grapple hook, grabbing stuff, chucking it in the back of the rocket and flying it home and weighing it in? Is that what will happen?
No, it's all going to be done by remote control.
But
it is something you could do. And in actual fact, some of the NASA missions have captured spacecraft or satellites already where they've stopped spinning. They've captured them with special hooks on the side of the shuttle, respun them, getting them back into life, and then released them again so that they can be perfectly serviceable satellites. It's already been done.
Interesting.
Yep.
Ken Dodd joke. Here, Ken Dodd joke. I have kleptomania, but when it gets really bad, I just take something for it.
And because today is World Sleep Day, I've got to get this in. Apparently for a good night's sleep. You ready?
Yeah.
Ready, Rach?
She's got to sleep.
She's got to sleep. Reduce stress. Relax before bed, cut out the coffee, watch what you eat, put the screens away. In other words, don't have your computer, that's wrecked for me. Don't take your phone to the bedroom. That's a good one. Have a sleep schedule. Don't try too hard. And don't worry, you'll be fine, they say.
That's very fair, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Apparently it is International Sleep Day today, or World Sleep Day today. And with that, we have to say goodbye. We really do, because we've got to go in a minute. But as Rachel seems to have disappeared off the planet...
But no, she's gone. Yeah, that's so sad. We've just been telling her how lovely she is and how wonderful and gorgeous.
My satellite dropped down. She's back.
She's back just in time. Rach, you're not working this weekend, are you?
On Sunday.
Just Sunday?
Ooh,
yeah, Sunday I am.
Oh, so what are you doing tomorrow?
Nothing.
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 Oh.
Vacuuming.
What? That is,
Vacuuming, you know,
that
I
is,
love it.
no, I'm sorry, that's not a chore for you, that's a luxury.
That's my Formula One, man.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, Rach, time to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Right. And just 10 seconds for you, Lee.
Well, yes, that very great man who said, I'm going out, I might be some time. That's what I'm doing. I'm setting off into the blue yonder in the snow, and I might not make it back.
My word, I worry too much. Listen, have a good time. I know where you're going. Enjoy yourself and enjoy your grandchild as well.
Yeah, thank you. I will. Fabulous.
I just couldn't.
One very quick thing.
You haven't got time.
Did you hear about the shrimp that went to the prawns cocktail party? He pulled a muscle.
Oh, Gordon Bennett. That was Postcard from Poprad. Steve's up next. Thank goodness for that. Oh, dear. See ya.